Well, I too want to thank you all for being here and participating in this, which is a very important conversation. The border region, which is comprised of 10, it would be the world's fourth largest world economy. The congressional district that I represent, as Congressman O'Rourke alluded to, it is 800 miles of U.S.-Mexico border. No other congressional district in the country shares as much of a border with Mexico. Part of our challenge is to rethink this whole immigration debate, because the truth is that people who are far removed from the border, who are nowhere near the border, have continued to spread essentially myths about our part of the world. Over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to travel through the 10 counties along the border that I represent, and no one is asking for a fence, whether they were elected officials or law enforcement or members of the business community, and no one is asking for additional members of the Border Patrol. I know, as the representative from that area, what jobs mean, not only for us, but to the rest of the country. For the border, more than 400,000 jobs in Texas rely on our trade with Mexico. U.S. exports to Mexico exceeded our exports to Brazil, to Russia, to India, and to China combined. In fact, 98.5% of Texas exports, 98.5% of Texas exports go to Mexico. In terms of trade between the U.S. and Mexico, $472.9 billion, roughly the equivalent of $1.3 billion a day, or if you want to think about it, in terms of $1 million a minute. Think of what you would do if you had a possibility of generating $1 million a minute. Well, as has been mentioned, 3 of the top 10 most economically crucial ports of entry are in the district that I represent. In 2012, $914.7 million in imports came through the 5 ports of entry in the district, in District 23. That's $104,000 an hour. In the same year, 2012, there was $372,000 an hour of exports. So every day, every single day, billions of dollars worth of goods are coming through our regions and flowing to the rest of our country. I remember the times when, growing up along the border, when you would run across over to Mexico and you would have lunch. And you would come back to your office at the end of your lunch hour. I remember the times where people from Mexico would come, iban de compras. They would come and they would come to the United States and they would run errands and they would buy their groceries or they would buy whatever they needed and they would go back over onto the Mexican side. That doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't happen anymore because of the delays that has been alluded to this evening. All of us are working together to do something about 3 things. First, changing the dynamics of the conversation, because the truth is that our area has a phenomenal story to tell, and it isn't being told. As a Latino growing up along the border, you know, I was taught culturally that there's some people you don't say anything about. Don't say anything about my wife. Don't say anything about my mother. And don't say anything about my sisters. And the truth is that people like Representative King and others, when they make these broad statements, need to realize that these are not nameless, faceless people that they're talking about. They're talking about people's mothers and grandmothers and sisters. And that personalizes the debate. And the debate needs to be not only about those people as individuals, but about what they contribute to our economy and how a dollar goes through our economy and rotates. Because if you spend $1 in Presidio, Texas, that dollar doesn't stay in Presidio, Texas. That dollar goes up Highway 67 and hits I-10, and once it hits I-10, it can go west to California, east all the way to Florida, or truly, it'll go all the way up to Washington, D.C., New York, and the Canadian border. Myths about our border region are spread by people who don't know anything about it, don't go there, don't know it, don't live there, weren't raised there, and truthfully, they should defer to the people who live there, who know the situation and have lived it on the ground. Those kinds of ill-advised comments, they have a negative impact on the immigration debate, they have a negative impact on our area, and in turn, they have a negative impact on the entire U.S. economy. Instead, we ought to be asking how we can improve the infrastructure in our regions, how we can reduce border wait times, how we can put a shot of energy and boost our economy and help our country economically. So I'm very glad to be here today. I want to thank Congressman Vela and Congressman Grijalva for their leadership in the Border Caucus. And I want to say that as this continues, I hope that you will continue to emphasize and talk about the importance of the economy, the importance of comprehensive immigration reform to the economy, to jobs, and to people, not just along the border area, but frankly, the border's impact on the rest of the country.